thought. That is to say, we've now been confronted with an Israeli government unlike any we've ever witnessed. That Israeli democracy faces now an existential threat. And in the face of the most extremist government in the history of the state, the Israel that we knew or we thought we knew is going to change irrevocably for the worse. Second group says, yeah, headlines, things are bad, and we must be vigilant, but it's just politics. Politics is telling people what they want to hear. Governing is what usually results in what they're going to get. There's going to be a course correction at some point because the Israeli public simply will not stand for the implementation of a fundamentalist extremist view, particularly on the Supreme Court. And I'll remind our listeners that the average length of an Israeli government since independence was 1.8 years. So in short, this too shall pass. I think I know what your answer is going to be, Tzipi, but where are you situated, in column A, B, or maybe something in between?
No, not in between at all. I believe that we are facing now a threat of a change of the nature of Israel as a democracy. It's not just a political issue. It's something that is really a huge change. It's a drama. But unlike those...
Uh-oh. Seem to have lost Tzipi. Hopefully we can get this connection back soon. There we go.
Can you hear me? Yes. Could you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you fine.
In short, I said that it is a drama. There's a threat of changing the nature of Israel as a democracy. But it's not all over. Now it's the midst of demonstrations. The Israelis are not going to take it. And therefore, Israel now is being divided. And I hope that the voices that are coming from the streets in Israel against the legislation and the attempts of the government to change completely the nature of Israel, I hope that we'll succeed in stopping it.
Yeah.
But it's a huge drama. It's not just another government. It's not just another bill. It's not just politics. It's a drama.
All right. So, okay. So you're in column A. Set this in context for us, because you participated in Israeli governments and in the opposition. What are the defining characteristics of this government that's separated from business as usual in Israeli politics?
In a way, what we call in Israel, this is a right-wing, far-right, extreme right-wing government altogether. There are three factions within this government. In Israel, we are having a coalition. So in this government, you are having one side parties that represent the ultra-Orthodox, very religious parties in Israel, that for them, and I'll relate to it later, but for them, equality is not something that goes in accordance to their religious views, not for women, not LGBT. They are not serving in the army, and therefore they don't believe also in what we call in Israel equality in burden. So this is one faction in the government. The other, these are the representatives of the settlers. And they would like to push us and to take Israel into one road toward a one-state reality between Jordan River and Mediterranean Sea. And for them also, the Supreme Court that forced them to give equal rights to Palestinians or to give them standing in our Supreme Court, or trying or forcing them to comply with the law in the West Bank. This is something which is not acceptable for them. And on top of this, you have a prime minister that is now on trial for corruption. And his personal interest is to delegitimize the police, law enforcement, attorney general, in the entire judicial system. So and within Likud party, and Netanyahu is the head of Likud party, you have some members that their ideology is a combination of what I just shared with you. So for many years, we had within governments different parts. We had ultra-Orthodox in the parliament, in the government. We had settlers in the government, but the guidelines of the government were those that, in a way, didn't give them a free ride to do whatever they want. So it was a combination of compromises, but now, in a way, Netanyahu unleashed all the extreme ideas that for 75 years couldn't do it. And this is what we are facing.
Yeah. Is it too simple, 5 elections in just under 4 years? This is the 6th prime ministry for Benjamin Netanyahu. Is it too simple to argue that the reason we are where we are now, there may be a multitude of reasons, but the primary reason that you've had 5 elections in just under 4 years is because the prime minister simply could not afford countenancing any other arrangement that didn't give him an opportunity, a majority in this case, 64 seats, to escape, delay, immunize himself from his ongoing trial. Is that too simplistic an explanation?
It's clear that this is the personal interest of Netanyahu, that this is abusing the system or using his political alliance and partners in order to do so. That's clear about him. Yes. But it's not just about him as a prime minister. During the negotiations on forming the coalition, he gave them everything that they asked for. From the religious point of view, changing the status quo within Israel, the relations between the state and religion, and he gave the settlers everything that they want. And so in a way, he paid with the nature of Israel as a democracy, or we had a balance. Since the state of Israel was established, we had a balance between the two values of Israel as a Jewish democratic state, mainly being the nation state of the Jewish people with equal rights to all its citizens. This is what's written in the Declaration of Independence, which is the closest thing to constitution in Israel, because we don't have a constitution.
Yes.
And this was the common denominator for so many years, and now it is changing. And this is why people feel that they're under threat, that their rights are under threat, that what does it mean to be an Israeli in a country that is changing its identity, and therefore it's people feel, and this is the good news. You know, each and every Saturday night we are standing in the streets. Sometimes it's raining, sometimes it's cold. Well, it's Israel, yeah, cold, but and people are coming and young people are coming. And this is something that gives me hope.
I want to return to the issue of the demonstrations in a minute. One final question is, as you pointed out, Israel's had right-wing governments before, but never have they had a situation in which the second largest bloc in the Knesset, a composition of 2 smaller parties, won as many seats as they did, and reflective views, I think it's clear, the supremacist, racist, anti-democratic, homophobic views of probably less than 10%, which may be significant, of the population as a whole. Why did religious Zionism, this bloc, how did they manage to achieve this success?
Well, firstly, it's not, as I said before, it's not just a political change. It's a change, it's a deep change amongst the society itself. And it's about identity, it's about being strong. The conflict is continuing, and people feel that they need strong leaders, and there are those that are abusing it. And frankly, you mentioned that we had fifth round of 5 rounds of elections, the topics were not on the table in a way. Nobody spoke about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Even this, it was in the air, but it was mostly on one camp, it was anybody but Netanyahu, and on the other, they were those that were looking for strong leadership, gaining back personal security within Israel. And in a way, it's around 50-50, even now. It's 64 seats, but if you count the number of votes, it's a matter of thresholds and everything. So it's 50-50, like always. But unlike what happened in the past, is that usually in governments, you had other factions. I was a Minister of Justice in Netanyahu's government back in 2014. When he negotiated peace during the Obama administration, even accepting the idea of 2 states for 2 people, 67 land, but what's going on now, it's completely different. So even right-wing government, it was right-wing, but yet in an understanding that annexation of the entire territory is unacceptable. It doesn't serve the interest of Israel as a Jewish democratic state. Trying also not to ignite the region. There was the responsibility that now is lacking, now it's missing.
Right. And, it's interesting because some ask the question whether or not after a long political career, Netanyahu is now the longest governing prime minister in the history of the state of Israel, surpassing Ben-Gurion, I think, during his last prime ministry, whether or not the traditionally risk-averse Benjamin Netanyahu has now changed, that he's now accommodating and allowing and enabling and acquiescing in the emergence of these 2 right-wing parties. I guess time will tell. I want to
change. If I may add it, I don't want to be a commentator about Netanyahu, but
no, I understand.
But I was there in his government in 2014 when he decided to fire Yair Lapid and me from the government, and he turned to the right, and then they put the charges against him. So he decided to delegitimize law enforcement institutions. So in a way, I saw this happening. I never thought that it would reach this extreme point, but this is what's happening.
Yeah. Let's turn now to some of the specific issues. Let's begin with the threat to the judiciary. And I do not want to compare our system with yours. Alexander Hamilton once quipped that the judiciary, this is in the 18th century, was the least dangerous branch of our government because it had no, quote, sword and no purse. No sword and no purse. I just want to quote something that the Israeli president of the Supreme Court, Esther Hayud, said in a rather remarkable statement for a Supreme Court justice. She says about the judicial reform, this is a plan to crush the justice system. It is designed to deal a fatal blow to the independence of the judiciary and silence it. If it is implemented, the 75th anniversary of Israel's independence will be remembered as the year in which the country's democratic identity was dealt a fatal blow, quote unquote.
Yeah,
is that how you see it?
Yes. If I may, I would like to explain a bit because people tend to compare it to the situation in the States or elsewhere, and every democracy has different aspects. So in Israel, the democratic institutions are, like in any other democracy, we need to have within the government watchdogs, gatekeepers, in order to prevent corruption, those that are telling to the minister, you cannot do this or that. You have, of course, independent judicial system, whether it's the Attorney General and the entire courts, not only the Supreme Court, and free press. And we have 3 different authorities. The 2 of them are basically the same, which is the government and the parliament. Okay, they were elected. They are the elected ones.
Yes.
And the third one is the judicial system, independent. And the whole idea is that any decision of the government or the parliament can be supervised by the independent Supreme Court, and they are keeping the rights of the people. They are keeping whether the government is expressing the values of Israel, human rights, everything that was written in the Declaration of Independence, including equal rights to everybody, free, not only free press, but free speech, all the substance of democracy. It's not just system of elections. Democracy is not just majority rules. Majority needs to keep also minorities and human and civil rights. And what Netanyahu is doing now, so this is the system. You can, criticize or you can disagree with them, but you should accept their rule. This is what happened in Israel for 75 years. I was in different governments. We can like it or not, but this is the law. This is the nature of Israel. This is the substance. And during the last years, you could hear more and more in Israel, majority rules, we can do whatever we want, something that is completely against the nature of Israel as a democracy. Now, what's on the table, it's not just about the Supreme Court. One of the bills is to change the gatekeepers, the watchdogs, to lawyers. That every minister can bring his own lawyer as a consultant. So he will be the one that will guide the lawyer instead of listening to what the watchdogs are asking him to do. They want to nominate directly the Attorney General that now is being elected by a more public and independent committee with representative of the government, but that's it. And they want to nominate directly the judges, and they want to supervise and control the press. So altogether, they do not accept the separation of authorities and the role of the judicial system. They want to rule without limits. They want to have free rights without traffic signs. This is what's happening. And more than that, and this is what worries me the most, the idea of equality and human rights is something that is being now also under threat. Because just a few years ago, they legislated what is called the Nation Bill, saying that Israel is the nation state of the Jewish people, which is right. But yet in the Declaration of Independence, we have the other side of the equation, with equal rights to all its citizens. And they are not willing to add this word equality to our basic laws. So when this is the situation, it's not just a matter of system and the role of the judicial system, it's a matter of substance, of values. So altogether, they want to rule, they want to have free ride, they want to drive without a traffic sign, and also without accepting the basic values of the state of Israel and the basic human rights. This is what they want. I hope that they will not succeed.
In Mr. Netanyahu's interview with Jake Tapper on CNN, he made the case that this is not that unusual. He mentioned Canada, for example. But I think context is really important here. Israel does not have a formal written constitution. It does not have a bicameral legislature. Yeah. And the government and the executive basically are the same authority. So theoretically, with a 61-seat majority...
taking different examples from taking one thing from Canada and the other from another country, this is what Israel is. This is the way we are keeping the values of democracy. this is the responsibility and the role of our Supreme Court. And as I said before, the problem here now in Israel is that in the parliament, you have also elected members that they don't have something, you know, what the British are calling it's not done. This inner compass saying to somebody that was elected, no, it's not done. So if they don't have this as an inner compass, they need somebody from the outside that would say, but come on, it's not done.
I mean,
and to add another stage on this is that I was speaking about the part of the government that want to drive us, to take us to one state. So from their perspective, the more or less democracy you have in Israel, less questions they will be asked the day after annexation. What about the rights of the Palestinians? So it's for them, it's a two steps road. One, to make the erosion of Israel's nature as democracy, and then steps of annexation and so on, and we will pass I hopefully not, but we can pass the point of no return in our relations with the Palestinians. And this is what they are heading. This is what is so dangerous.
It's a strategy. And by the way, the notion of it's not done, I mean, from our own experience, I mean, I worked and voted for Republicans and Democrats, but the reality is for decades, American presidents functioned within certain parameters. And we've had our own very dangerous experience in recent years with an administration that would not accept the it's not done and basically said, we're going to do it. And
so you know what, Aaron, if I meant, since I did mention it before, but since you put it on the table, I think, and I watched it happening, when the president of the United States is crossing a red line of democracy, this red line doesn't exist anymore in other parts of the world. And I saw the same tweets during Trump's administration in Hebrew and in English. And in a way, for many years, maybe Netanyahu was thinking what to do, but in a way, I think that he understands that it's doable and it's fine. And he can get also political support for it, and he will not be punished by the United States of America.
Yeah.
So I think that this was the green light that changed everything also in Israel.
Let's move on now to the demonstrations. You know, they're rare. Massive demonstrations are rare in Israel. I was thinking this through. I mean, in 82, you had demonstrations over Lebanon. 2011, you had demonstrations over social and economic issues. In the 90s, you had pro-peace rallies. This is actually quite remarkable. For the fifth week, I guess, last Saturday, and as you pointed out to me when we were talking earlier, these demonstrations don't take place in various parts of the country. How do you read them? I mean, you've participated in them.
Yes.
I'm going to quote from the speech you gave. In fact, let me do that now, because I think it really reflects the stakes and the passion. Here's what you said, I guess, not in the most recent demonstration last month, the one before. They, the new government, oppose equal participation. They wish to just cancel the High Court of Justice, to abolish equality. And they're using the Israeli Defense Forces as a toy in the hands of messianic ministers who want to tear us apart. This cannot and will not happen. They went too far. In Israel, soldiers shall not become political toys. Politicians will not appoint judges alone and will not judge citizens. In Israel, they will not abolish freedom of speech. The press will not be threatened. Israel will not become a religious state in which women are behind. And you go on, and you conclude, tonight I call upon anyone who is rightfully proud of being Israeli, upon anyone who supports equality with no buts and ifs, anyone who's ashamed facing their violence and forcefulness, do not stand silent, join the fight. I mean, that's...
people joined.
Exactly. So I meant to ask you, will public opinion be the major constraint? on this new government's determination to have its own way?
First, I think that it took the government by surprise. I mean, I think that Netanyahu never dreamt that this will happen to him. I mean, this is the government exists only for 5 weeks, and it looks like 5 months at least, because they put everything on the table, and I think that they watched the opposition, and during the election campaign, the opposition was divided. And as you just mentioned, it's not our habit to go to demonstrate. And what I said is, come on, how can you demonstrate? We had elections and majority rules, and we need to say, no, but come on, elections, it's not a free ride, it's not a blank check. It's not a blank check to change the system itself, the nature of Israel itself. I mean, the whole idea is that you can have, you get a permission to write or to promote your own ideology and guidelines and vision. And I'm on the other side, I oppose your vision. But this is one thing. What happened is that it's something completely different. It's not about two different visions. It's about what Israel is. And people feel under threat. Some of them didn't know why even. But it was all together, being more religious, acting against the Supreme Court. The way they speak, it's very brutal. It's not just, putting a legislation. It's without listening to the gatekeepers, to the Attorney General. It's something that never happened. The substance, the method, the way, and therefore people are coming again and again, more and more, and in different parts of Israel, because at first they say, this is Tel Aviv. Those who live in Tel Aviv are being perceived as more liberal. But not only, you can find it all over Israel, and high-tech joined, and different sectors in Israel. And therefore, listen, I mean, they have the majority. But I think that Netanyahu understands that these voices from the squares in Israel are being heard also outside of Israel. And for the first time, he needs also to give some answers to what's going on in Israel. I mean, when we are coming, or Israeli leaders are coming to the States, to the United States, the opening of every press conference or speech is, we share the same values. Unbreakable, unshakable ties, shared values. Okay. And now he needs to explain, are we having the same values, or do you want to change this set of values? This is what he heard also in his last visit in France. So I think that at first he thought that, okay, we are separated, we are not united, the other side, and he sees something completely different. This is one thing. The other aspect that really gives me hope is that 5 rounds of elections were not on substance. We're not. Our camp, I described, the government, the different fractions of the government and the conservatives. But now let's speak about liberal voices in Israel. We were not speaking about our liberal values, about what does it mean to us being a Jewish democratic state, the nature of democracy, what does it mean to us? And altogether, you find, for the first time after many years and after different rounds of elections, people in Israel speaking, waving Israeli flags, saying, no, you are not going to turn it to something that we don't believe in. We are not just fighting against you, we are fighting for something. And I hope that this will turn also in the future to a robust political form that will unite the divided camp of liberals in Israel.
Yeah, it's worth pointing out that of 4+ million votes cast, I think the separation between the two sides was around 30,000 votes.
Yes.
Well, let's turn now to the Palestinian issue, because in a way, and it's fascinating because Israelis come out in the streets in a unified, passionate, determined fashion in response to what they perceive to be an assault on their system, on their way of life, on their values and identity. Palestinian issue does not rally Israelis to the same way. And yet, an inability to resolve that issue will threaten, as you yourself pointed out,
Yes.
the Jewish democratic character and nature of the state. So I just want to get your sense. You've been involved in this issue for a long time. You've seen the ups and mostly downs. You were lead negotiator in two separate periods. It seems to me that we've reached a sort of strategic cul-de-sac, and I'm not sure there's a way out right now. You have soon to be a 57-year-old Israeli occupation. You have a Palestinian Authority that's weakening and unable to control areas in Nablus and Jenin. You've got a younger generation of Palestinians who were not around for the Second Intifada, who are willing now to use terror and violence to resist the occupation. And you have a new Israeli government that's determined to annex at least most of the West Bank and Jerusalem. How do you see things? And what is your greatest fear here?
Okay. I will start by speaking about it not as the Palestinian issue, but as an Israeli issue. I don't promise Israelis that there is peace around the corner. Unfortunately, on both sides, there is no partner that is willing to make the compromises that are needed in order to end the conflict. But when I'm speaking to Israelis, I'm speaking about us. When our vision, when our destination is Jewish democratic state, we need to have a Jewish majority, and in order to do so, we need to give up part of the land. Hopefully, we'll find a partner to sign peace agreement comprehensive that ends the conflict. But even if now there is no partner on the other side, for many reasons, and even if now the Israeli government wants to take us to another direction, we will not, by the way, we will not, I don't think that we will see a dramatic annexation of the entire territory, but we will have, it will be crawling as different steps of annexation that we see already now. So when I'm speaking to Israel, saying this is our interest. So what we can do now, and I think that this also goes in line with the American policy, those believing in two states for two peoples. If we cannot reach an agreement, let's keep the road open. Don't put obstacles on the way. And obstacles means more settlements. It doesn't serve the interest of two states for two peoples. Not legalizing settlements. Do not take steps that are in a way legal annexation, something that the government wants to do now. Help the Palestinians to live better life, help them with their economy. When this is the vision, it's clear that I'm using the Waze example. I mean, this is the destination, this is the direction. Yes, we are having traffic jams this way or the other. What this government wants to do is their destination, national destination, is Greater Israel. It's about the land of Israel. And therefore, when I want to stop and to separate ourselves from the Palestinians in a peace agreement, they want to separate Israel from its democratic nature.
Right.
And this is the real discussion. Now, I agree with you that unfortunately, most of the Israelis are not speaking about it, are not thinking about it, because for so many years, and we didn't find a solution, and I myself negotiated twice. So it's not on the agenda, but I'm more optimistic now, one, because I hope that when they understand that what does it mean to have less democracy, so then we can connect it also to where the government is taking us. And secondly, people are now fighting also for equal rights to Arabs within Israel. They understand that they cannot just speak about women or about LGBT, it's about also the Arab minority within Israel. And yes, you can find also in in the demonstrations those that are going with the flags or speaking against the occupation. So it's not a majority, but it's part of an understanding that it is connected.
What you seem to be saying is that Israelis need to make peace among themselves, it appears, before there's any realistic possibility of finding an end of conflict solution with the Palestinians.
I think that there's a need. Well, no, I think that we need a decision that yes, there are two camps in Israel, two different directions of the nation, visions for the country.
Yes.
So let's have this debate within Israel. I do not support the idea of, in order to live together, we shouldn't raise this issue or we shouldn't speak about it. Yes, we should speak about it. Because if we are not speaking about it, we are sitting all together in a car that takes us to one state reality, which is not even a solution.
Right.
That will be not democratic, non-Jewish in the end of the road. It's really a danger.
Well, in a way, we're already in that one-state reality. I mean, again, my own sense is
yes, but it's not. But well, it can be worse. Now it's not too late, but I agree that it's very dangerous.
Leadership is critical here, and my own view for some time now, since leaving government 20 plus years ago, is that you're going to need I don't know if there's any other way to say it. You're going to need a Mandela, and you're going to need a de Klerk. You're going to need leaders who are masters of their political houses, not prisoners of their ideologies. And frankly, and on both sides.
I agree.
And you don't have that. And
now we have none, unfortunately, here and there.
Unfortunately, you have in some respects, the reverse. In the time that remains, we could have a long discussion on Iran, but frankly, I'm not sure that discussion is going to be able to take us anywhere that's new. I mean, it's an identity issue for the prime minister. Other than beating his trial, he has three priorities: Iran, Iran, and Iran. And how that's going to go,
he has two priorities. One is Iran, and it's a threat not only to Israel, and I think that he's trying now to form a new international alliance to deal with it.
Right.
And the other, I think that he would like also to expand the Abraham Accords to the Saudis.
Right.
But what he's trying to sell to Israel is that, you see, we can make peace for peace. So the Palestinians are not important now. Nobody takes care about the Palestinians, and this is what he's looking for. But let's see whether he would succeed. And therefore he needs the United States for both.
Right. So you're virtually right now in Washington. Even though you're speaking to us from Israel, you are in Washington. And I know, because I'd be hard pressed, frankly, to appear to be criticizing a government if I were presenting in that government's capital. But what role does the United States play? Can it play? I'm reluctant to use the word should, although if you want to take on the issue of what the U.S. should do.
I'm an Israeli, so I would not advise the American administration, but knowing President Biden and his views about Israel, I know that he supports Israel in deep understanding that Israel is a Jewish democratic state. He supports Israel's security, and rightly so. He believes in the idea of two states for two peoples. So I'm sure that from the American perspective, now I'm speaking as an Israeli, but I do believe that what I represented in our conversation is also the American administration beliefs and policy. I believe that the president doesn't want to be the American president that during his term, the idea of two states for two peoples disappeared from the table because of the steps that the Israeli government is taking. And I'm sure that since he believes, and I know what he represents in terms of democratic values, I'm sure that he would like to have Israel not just speaking about shared values, but really representing it. So it's not, I would not advise, but I think that this is I think that this is also something that the Prime Minister heard or is hearing from the United States. And it is important. It is important because I would not enter into what the administration should do, but I would share with you how the Israelis are looking at the United States. When you say in Israel, the international community, it's the United States.
Right.
It's not Europe. And the Israelis understand that the relations between Israel and the US are of strategic nature to Israel's security. And they expect their prime minister to get along with any American president. So the relationships are important, of course, for me, but not only because my history as a foreign minister or so, but as an Israeli. And I think that this is something that should be also heard in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, and what made the relationship so special and so resilient
Yes.
is the confluence of values and interests. And
Exactly.
and that's those values and interests are under stress, not just values, but some of the interests as well. Let me conclude by asking you one more question. In April, May, Israel will turn 75.
Yeah.
And I don't like comparing the U.S. and Israel because, well, for many reasons. At times, I think one is Mars and the other is Venus. But I'd like your reaction to the following. 75 years after our independence, that would be 1851, okay? We were 9 years short of a civil war that would fundamentally determine the trajectory of the company. But in 1851, neither the borders of the United States nor the identity of the United States as a nation were fixed. So let me ask you, Tzipi Livni, 75 years after Israeli independence, is it a fair statement to suggest that neither the borders of the state of Israel nor the identity of the state of Israel is yet to be determined by large majorities in the space between the Mediterranean Sea and the Jordan River? Is that a fair statement?
Wow.
No, it's an intriguing.
What a question.
But is it fair? Is it an accurate description?
In answering, I would like to take us back to the day that the state of Israel was established and declared by Ben-Gurion. And he wrote with others the Declaration of Independence that sets the values and the nature of the country. By the way, including reaching hand for peace to our neighbors. And every part of Israel, political fractions and parties, those that hated each other at the time, signed it.
Yes.
It was the socialists and the communists and the ultra-Orthodox and the revisionists. So altogether, they understood that this is a moment in which they should put aside different, less important issues and sign it. So we had this. And things are changing. But I think that it's easier to readapt something that was already adapted in the past, like the values of the Declaration of Independence. It is also clear, and I agree that unfortunately our borders were not set yet and need to be agreed upon with the Palestinians. This is an open issue. I hope that, and Israel now is being divided to different tribes and to two different basic camps. And it's a huge, deep dispute. I hope that the outcome of this will be not reinventing a new vision, but going back to the vision of the Declaration of Independence. So the day, on a personal note, the day after the Declaration of Independence was signed, my parents got married. They are the first couple that got married in the independent state of Israel. So they had their hopes for their children, which is me. And I hope that this vision for the country will continue also for my children and my new grandchildren.
Tzipi Livni, I'm really pleased that you ended on this note. And I think I'll invoke the words of former President Kennedy, who described himself as an idealist without illusion. I borrowed that, and I've adopted it. I've stolen it from Jack Kennedy, but I think it may apply to you as well. And I want to thank you for coming on and sharing your expertise and your authority. And I would say at a very perilous moment for your country, Israel is very fortunate to have someone like you who is willing and able to speak out with such passion and such force in the values in which you believe.
Thank you
again. Thanks.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.